Continuing in verse 25. At that point, some of the people of Jerusalem began to ask, "Isn't this the man they are trying to kill? Here he is speaking publicly, and they are not saying a word to him. Have the authorities really concluded that he is the Messiah? But we know that where this man is from, and when the Messiah comes, no one will know where he is from." Then Jesus, still teaching in the temple courts, cried out, "Yes, you know me, and you know where I am from. I am not here on my own authority, but he who sent me is true. You do not know him, but I know him because I am from him, and he sent me." At this they tried to seize him, but no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. Still, many in the crowd put their faith in him, and they said, "When the Messiah comes, will he perform more signs than these?" You see, here we find Jesus speaking publicly. And so this links the discussion between Jesus and his brothers yet again. Jesus arrives in secret to this feast, but now he is making a public appearance. And he causes the crowd to ponder, who is he? But note that it is not Jesus' actions that they are actually assessing here. What they are assessing is the actions of the Jewish leaders, because they're asking themselves, isn't this the man? And if the Jewish leaders have not decided to arrest him, perhaps the Jewish leaders have determined that he is the Messiah. So what they are judging is they're taking their cue from the Jewish leaders, not by their ability to assess the activities of Jesus. They're following the wrong leader. "Where I am from," Jesus says. Yet again, we have one of those dual meanings. Jesus is from above. He's not from Bethlehem. And so it says, when they decide that this can't be the Messiah because the Messiah, we won't know where he's from, Jesus is from God. They don't know where he is from in reality. Continuing in verse 32. The Pharisees heard the crowd whispering such things about him. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees sent temple guards to arrest him. Jesus said, "I am with you for only a short time, and then I go to the one who sent me. You will look for me, but you will not find me, and where I am you cannot come." The Jews said to one another, "Where does this man intend to go that we cannot find him? Will he go where our people live scattered among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? What did he mean when he said, 'You will come look for me, but you will not find me, and where I am you cannot come'?" The crowd is whispering again. It's the word for grumbling. And so yet again we see this grumbling noise in the background. This is just like the Israelites in the wilderness. Again, we see, "Where I am going, you don't know where I'm going." It's another future reference to Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection and ascension. The final event of Jesus' life is the defining event of everything that comes before that event. Reading on in verse 37. On the last and greatest day of the festival, Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them." By this he meant the Spirit, whom those who believed in him would later receive. Up to that time the Spirit had not been given, since Jesus had not yet been glorified. On hearing his words, some of the people said, "Surely this man is the prophet." Others said, "He is the Messiah." Still others asked, "How can the Messiah come from Galilee? Does not Scripture say that the Messiah will come from David's descendants and from Bethlehem, the town where David lived?" Thus the people were divided because of Jesus. Some wanted to seize him, but no one laid a hand on him. "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink," Jesus says. On the last and greatest day of the festival, the day when the priest led the procession from the temple out to the pool of Siloam and back with water to pour out as a libation, they would walk around the altar 7 times, and it is in that setting that Jesus stands and says, "Whoever is thirsty, come to me and drink, and I will give them streams of living water," real water. Jesus is announcing that he is the fulfillment of the water that is offered on the altar. He is the fulfillment of the provision of God. The great symbol of water in the desert, Jesus is that fulfillment. In verse 39, John narrates a bit for us and tells us about something that happens later so that we can understand the message here. He talks about the Spirit, the streams of living water, is really the Spirit that Jesus will give after his ascension. And John makes it known to us that at this point, that Spirit was not given to the disciples, but it was given after Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. Thus, the source of living water is not from within the believer. It actually comes from God and is given to the believer, but the location of that source of living water is within the believer. Pause. Continuing verse 45. Finally, the temple guards went back to the chief priests and the Pharisees, who asked them, "Why didn't you bring him in?" "No one ever spoke the way this man does," the guards replied. "You mean he has deceived you also," the Pharisees retorted. "Have any of the rulers or of the Pharisees believed in him? No. But this mob that knows nothing of the law, there is a curse on them." Nicodemus, who had gone to Jesus earlier and who was one of their own number, asked, "Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he has been doing?" They replied, "Are you from Galilee too? Look into it, and you will find that a prophet does not come out of Galilee." "No one ever spoke this way before," the guards said. So, in a strange way, the guards become a witness to Jesus and contrast with the priests who hate him. The irony that goes through all of this is highlighted by the fact that we, the readers, know more about what's going on in this passage than the participants in the story. "A prophet does not come out of Galilee?" the priests will ask the guards. So, which is it? The crowd is confident that Jesus is not the Messiah because they know when the Messiah comes that the Messiah is supposed to come from a place of secret origin. The leaders are confident that Jesus is not the Messiah because he comes from Galilee, and they are certain that the Messiah will come from Bethlehem. So not only do they not judge correctly, but their judgments from Scripture are contradictory and confusing. They don't know how to assess the actions of Jesus, and they're trying to fit him into their predetermined categories, and even their categories don't make sense because they contradict one another. This is a classic source of irony. John is turning the crowds upon one another, and he is demonstrating that those that claim to be the closest followers of Moses, the ones most concerned with following the law, don't even understand the law. He says, "Look into it, you will see that no prophet comes from Galilee." Well, in fact, Jonah, one of the great prophets, comes from Galilee. So they don't even know the content of the Scriptures. Jesus is Word become flesh. His origin is from above. And he invites us to know that the works and the teachings that he taught while here were from God and not his own. And he invites us into the world of God to assess God's activity, his purpose, his desire to redeem the whole world, the whole man, to make whole what has been broken by sin. And this is not going to be governed by simple readings of the Scriptures to reduce it to laws. It's going to be discerned by God's activity to go about his purposes.